Alright, so sorry for not uploading anything in a while, but I've been really busy being a lazy cunt. So anyway, I'm going to talk about a film that I don't think a lot of people have heard of. An independent film called Circle. No, not that one. No. Oh, come on. There we go. So The Circle is a 2015 release, written and directed by Aaron Han and Mario Missoni. They previously created a TV series called The Vault, which I've never seen, and I don't think you have either. The Circle is the pair's directorial debut, and they've been fortunate enough to have it released on Netflix. But, is it any good? Well, let's just have a look. So The Circle is one of those films that takes place in one location, the location being a mysterious alien-like torture chamber, and in this room 50 people with different personalities and backgrounds suddenly find themselves there. Who put them there and why is never made clear, but that's not really important. So every 2 minutes a person is killed and supposedly at random. However, it's soon discovered that it's not random and they actually have the power to vote for who's going to be killed next. So it becomes a race against time as they decide which one of them will actually survive. Now, I've got to be honest, I think that concept is pretty awesome. Any film that forces the main characters to make an impossible and morally devastating decision about something always gets me interested. The plot plays out how you'd expect. The crowd initially start to panic about the situation, but then they try and think about it rationally.
There's no reason for us all to just keep killing each other off like this.
Well, what the hell else are we gonna do, my man?
We don't have a choice.
What I mean is we can choose to go about this in a certain way.
So one of the men comes up with the idea of killing the oldest people in the room first, his reasoning being that they're probably close to death anyway. Throughout the film, all kinds of social and political issues are brought up, like age, race, sexuality, nationality, the list goes on. And with these issues, the characters start to show their true colours and personal prejudices. The interesting thing about this film is that it makes you think what you would do in that situation. It's easy to think of yourself as the hero or the one who would sacrifice himself for others, but when you actually find yourself in that situation, you may not be the selfless hero you thought you might be. Hell, you may even be the one who suggests killing the elderly. It raises some interesting questions, like any good science fiction should. Another thing I like about this film is that it's never made clear who the main character is, or if there even is one. Now, this might be a problem in other films. However, it works in this film as you're never certain who's actually going to survive. Now, with the way I'm praising the film's story, you probably think I love this movie. Well, I don't. Despite the interesting story and concept, The Circle is quite flawed. So flawed in fact that I don't think I can even call it a good movie. So what's wrong with it? Well, firstly, the acting is...
Oh my god!
well... it sucks. Okay, some of the actors do a semi-decent job, but for the most part, it's pretty bad. Like, despite possibly being moments away from being fucking killed, everyone seems relatively calm. I mean, they freak out to start with, but then they seem to calm down relatively quickly. Also, some of the facial expressions are pretty laughable. Oh, what's the matter? You gonna cry? So yeah, the acting's pretty shit, but that's not the film's biggest problem. The biggest issue I have with this film is the pacing. To put it simply, this film feels way too long. And considering it's not that long by feature film standards, that's not a good thing. And it's not because it's a bad story, far from it, but as much as I like the story, I don't think it really works in a feature film format. Okay, so when the movie starts, the pacing's fairly decent, although they probably discovered the fact that they have the ability to vote too quickly, but after rewatching it, it didn't seem like an issue. Then around the 8-minute mark, we get to the film's moral dilemma when one of the men suggests killing off the elderly. Then after that, well... the movie just kind of repeats itself. I mean, we had the issue of whether they should kill the elderly, then they talk about whether they should kill racists, then whether they should kill gay people, then the disabled, and so on and so on. It gets to a point where it seems like the characters are just repeating the same 3 lines of dialogue over and over again. And maybe this was the film's intention?
Jesus, we just keep going in circles.
But even if it was, it doesn't change the fact that this film is really fucking repetitive.
They'd be the next to die anyway.
Yeah, of natural causes, not of us killing them.
She's more likely to die than the rest of us.
She was still a human being, just like any of you.
We shouldn't kill someone else over someone who can't even contribute to the conversation.
Maybe we're supposed to figure out who's good and who's bad.
How about we kill all the black people next?
Everybody vote for the black guy.
Wait, what? I'm not gonna die so some racist can live.
She's just a kid.
She's never heard of birth control, so she gets to live.
What if she's a miserable brat?
You gonna fucking kill me because I have an opinion?
If you don't have children, maybe you should volunteer.
But you think it's okay for a child
Some
to be raised
people
with 2 gay moms?
control. I'm talking about the society.
You kill a kid to save your own life. You're the next to die anyway.
Kill shouldn't kill.
Someone
You're the next to die anyway.
Contribute.
Have an opinion?
Anyway, I probably wouldn't have minded the repetitiveness if the film had a few surprises in store, but the film didn't really have any. It plays out pretty much how you'd expect, and you gotta admit, when you read the film synopsis, you can kind of already figure out the film's message, so there's not really anything you wouldn't expect. Now, this is actually the point I wanted to make with this video. Yes, this video actually has a point. Now, I've probably said this a million times already, but I think The Circle has a really good concept. But here's the thing. You need more than a good concept to make a good movie. You can't just rely on the idea alone. You see, when you're trying to turn an idea into a script, it's not just about the concept. It's also about execution. Having a good concept is great and all, but the fact is, if the idea isn't executed properly, then it's not going to make a good movie. I mean, look what happened to The Purge, for example. That had an interesting concept. In The Purge, the US has become almost crime-free because they have an annual event called The Purge, in which all crime is legalized. Okay, so it's a bit silly, but it's still an interesting idea. However, when it came to the actual execution, The Purge just fell flat. I mean, they took an interesting concept and they just turned it into a generic home invasion movie, and not a very good one at that. You see? Good concept, shite execution. Now, I don't think The Circle is as bad as The Purge, but it does have the same issue. It had a really good concept, but it was executed poorly. It turned a great idea into a film that's, for the most part, really repetitive, not to mention incredibly preachy. You know what? Just for the hell of it, let's look at the opposite. Hunt for the Wilder People. I won't go into too much detail, but the basic premise is that a boy and his foster father are on the run from the law and have to live in the wilderness. The pair hate each other at first, but then they start to like each other. Okay, so it's not a bad concept, but it's not something that I would call that unique. However, I think Hunt for the Wilder People works because of its execution. The characters are likeable, it has its unexpected and emotional moments, it's well shot, and most importantly, it's really, really funny. They turned a fairly basic concept into a pretty awesome movie. It even made it onto my Best of 2016 video, which you can watch anytime on the Your Opinions Are Wrong YouTube channel. So yeah, in some cases, I'd say execution is actually more important than the concept. So, getting back to The Circle, I still think the biggest problem is its length. Now, I've seen a lot of people compare this film to The Twilight Zone, and you know what? I think if this was actually an episode of The Twilight Zone, it could have worked. You see, The Circle is an hour and 25 minutes long, but an episode of Twilight Zone is just around 25 minutes. And that's the issue with the film. It's a story that could have worked better in a shorter format. It would have been better as an episode of The Twilight Zone, or even a short film. Yeah, it would have worked much better as a short. If they cut the amount of people down to like maybe 15 and make it 25 minutes overall, it could have been an amazing short. Cut out all the bullshit, have it more focused, and it could have been great. Unfortunately, this just isn't the case. What we have is a film that's too long for the story it's telling, and it just becomes really tedious to sit through. So overall, I definitely can't call The Circle a good movie, but I don't think I can call it bad either. The film is pretty repetitive, but I can't say I was ever bored. And there are a few decent moments that save it from being a piece of shit. To me, it's not terrible, it's just wasted potential. Having said that though, I am interested to see what the directors are going to do next. I think they have the potential to be good filmmakers. I mean, The Circle isn't great, but to be fair, it is their first feature, so they're probably just figuring things out. It seems like they have some interesting film ideas, and hopefully the next film will be much better. But, unfortunately, their first film is just mediocre. So in conclusion, The Circle is... meh.
Okay, now.